Welcome back to another episode of Thanks for the Consult. As always, I'm Fior. Today we have Aaron with us. How you doing, Aaron?
Good, buddy.
Good to hear from you. And today's guest, we have Greg Onega. Greg is the Education Program Coordinator for Penn State Fayette EMS Training Facility. And we're happy to talk to you today. How you doing, man?
I'm good. Thank you for having me, Fior and Aaron. Appreciate being here.
Yeah,
I'd like
cool,
to issue a public apology for not knowing how to pronounce your last name.
Wow, that was quick. It didn't take very long, did it? Not at all.
No, it was on my conscience. I had to get that out there. I apologize. I've let a lot of people down.
Apology accepted.
Thank you, friend.
I mean, I'm still hurt by it, Aaron, but we'll move on. Greg, you obviously working in the EMS training sector, if you will, which is super important. Something that I think both Aaron and I are passionate about. So you teach at what level? Do you teach EMTs, medics, the whole thing, everything in between?
Yeah, all of it. The only thing that I don't teach is EMS instructor, and that's because I don't have that master's degree, and the state hasn't recognized me as an instructor. So, in that category. But I do hold a certification as a paramedic, so I'm able to teach all levels.
Cool. So what got you into the teaching?
Just got tired of not too long. I was about 10 years into being a paramedic and got a little tired of that. Wanted a little bit extra and to pump up a pay a little bit, actually. And it started out with that idea.
Okay.
The place that I was working at the time had a separate training center, and if you became an instructor, they would pay you separately for doing that.
Cool.
Which I felt was better than getting a bunch of overtime added on, and not getting hit by taxes. So. But I was interested in something new. I was interested in being an instructor. So I started out with that. I got my EMS instructors in 2011.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So since 2011, I imagine you've taught at least a few classes. Fair to say.
Oh yeah, a few.
What's your so I'm assuming the program I work with, we the first couple of weeks of class, we always ask, what's your motivation to be here, right? What do you find is a pretty common motivator for folks either getting into the field or advancing to a higher level certification?
That's a great question, because I really think that's predicated on the type of class that you're taking. What do I mean by that? Certainly, I mean, if you're looking at the paramedic level, you're going to get someone that most likely will be interested is either working in EMS already, or in the healthcare as a EMS personnel, meaning they could be working for a hospital system, right? And they're just increasing their certification to get a better pay to continue that work, at least forthcoming. AEMT kind of follows the same suit a little bit, I think. But when you look at EMT, it's strikingly different.
Yeah.
Your traditional looking EMT classes, these are classes that go range as much as 5 months, at least 3 months, right? Those are the traditional ones. And then you can have a fast track looking one, which will go roughly about 9 weeks. They'll meet about every day of the week for a period of time.
Yeah.
And so, if you're looking at a summer class, you'll get a lot of students that will take an EMT class with design that they're going to parlay that education as part of a application, if you will, or not an application, but a resume, if you will, about themselves to apply to PA school, med school, nursing school.
Okay.
So like one of the classes that I did significantly, that was a summer fast track class. It went 9 weeks. It was EMT level. I got a lot of students that were in college already, no ambition whatsoever of actually working for EMS. Their goal was to gain the education and then the certification with the idea that it was going to pad their the resume, so to speak, as a student.
Okay. Interesting. So I've seen a lot of the, I've been with the fire department for 24 years at this, 23 years, 24 years. And a lot of people do it as prerequisite for some of their pro board stuff. And I always found that interesting because the department I'm with had QRS up until recently. And, the amount of people we had that were, EMTs or whatnot, they're like, nah, I just got that so I could give my, BVR instructor, but I have no interest in running medical calls. Always amazed me because I think they're more fun than most fire calls, to be honest, because you get to use your brain.
Sure. Sure. Absolutely.
But,
Just add on to that too. I mean, I think even on the EMT side, we're seeing a lot of changes with that. And paramedic has pretty much stayed the same, consistent of why the individual takes the class. Most of the time, it's to get a higher position within an EMS service, fire, if they do fire and EMS together, that kind of thing. But EMT really has evolved. So outside of those students that would take it for a summer to, pad a resume, we got a lot of firemen that were becoming EMTs to support their own fire companies, and then a few of those would also work EMS as well. But most recently, especially since the pandemic, we've been getting a lot of folks taking EMT class as a change of work. Right.
Yeah.
They were previously doing something else when the pandemic hit. And now, because of the pandemic, that may have caused them to lose their job or, caused a crimp into their employment. And now they're looking at something different. So again, we're seeing a much different look. So EMT that class can be very, very broadening in the quality of students. And quality is probably a wrong word to say. The reason behind taking the class.
Sure.
Very broad.
Yeah.
Do you have a preferred class level to teach?
What's that?
Do you have a class level you prefer to teach?
EMT.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Yeah. They're fresh minds coming in that don't know, right? And when you get that A and that paramedic in particular, those students, they think they already know. And a lot of them do. I'm not criticizing them when I say that, but they already come in with predispositions, right? And it's because whether it's from the EMS service that they're working for, guaranteed the one I worked for many years, preconceived. Absolutely. 100%.
Well, I can tell you some of the more difficult ones because they have bad habits to break are that currently their A is going through paramedic class. I'm like, you shouldn't be doing that.
Do you think the proportion of your class that is one of those types of student is more inflated in EMS than it is in other like traditional disciplines? Just because I feel like, I've done a more traditional higher education and then I've done up to paramedic. And I felt like in every class there was, as far as like EMS levels went, there's multiple people who were very vocal about the fact that they felt that they would know what they were doing, which I didn't really have that to the same extent in my other classes. But I wasn't sure if that was just anecdote.
No, I think that most students, when they go into a paramedic class, do come in with a lot of preconceived notions, a lot of things that were run as kind of everyday occurrences at the ambulance service that they were at, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Most recently, we just had a student that we had a conversation with in regards to them not taking in a cardiac monitor on calls. And that actually came from what the service was doing.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I can tell you I've worked places where that, when you grab that monitor, like, what the heck are you doing? And then there's other places that I've worked where I don't even need to think about it. And, my partner has the monitor before I even get out of the truck ready to go. So
yeah,
it's definitely, I think a lot of the field craft, if you will, is determined by where you work. But
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
What do you do to address those students? How do you address those students? So like I train jiu-jitsu, right? And in jiu-jitsu, whenever you have a new guy come in and they're acting like they know what they're doing and talking real loud and stuff, usually a coach gives one of the guys that really knows what they're doing a look, and then they go, all right, I'll get that out of them. You know what I mean? Is that effective, or is there a strategy? Like, how do you do it?
I mean, the old ways of teaching EMS really are old. We used to basically made it like a drill sergeant kind of thing. You're now in the Army taking a paramedic class, right? Or you're in the military taking a paramedic class. It was pretty much, do as I say, not as I do kind of a thing. That approach, worked for some, but didn't work for a lot of others, right? So now the approach is with those students is that we certainly try to give them a voice in the class, right, and have them go ahead and speak up, and then we work through the problem together. So we don't exactly contradict them, but we definitely make them think more in depth on it by posing more questions. Scenarios, case studies is a good way to work through those problems for sure.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Do you I noticed a lot the student that their motivator is they feel like the medic that they work with currently isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing. And they want to be that medic to resolve those issues and treat those patients, as they see appropriate. Do you find that?
I I will tell you just from my own personal experience, that the most that I have learned as an EMS person literally has been over the last 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah. The bulk of my EMS was definitely run by protocols, and I followed the protocols right. I picked the right protocols. I treated the patients appropriately. I don't think that I did anything that wasn't good, but at the same time, it was not at the level that we're trying to get our students at. And I
Sure.
think other ed institutes are looking at it the same way. I can tell you the National Registry is definitely looking at it that way.
Yeah.
It is not enough to say that, hey, I know to apply that cardiac monitor, and I know how to read that rhythm, and I know how to, treat that rhythm, or I know how to treat this. We want to actually be able to predict, and by doing so, this is differential diagnosis, right? You
Hmm.
guys have probably heard that. That's something that has become a coin of phrase over the last maybe 10 years of EMS education, where we're not doing, what your field impression is. That used to be the old way of talking about it. Now we're trying to say, hey, we want you to figure out possibilities, right? Or probabilities of something, possibilities, and what of those are probabilities, and what is the one, and narrow that down. Um, and I can tell you that as a practitioner, as a paramedic, I was definitely not thinking that way.
Yeah.
But the culture at that time is that that's what we were producing. So for those ones that are saying that they're working with paramedics, that they're concerned that they're not really, sometimes maybe not doing the right things, or may seem like they're just kind of, trying to fit somebody into a protocol. I've heard those words too.
Yeah.
It's probably because if they're of a certain age, it's because they literally was taught that way.
Yeah. Well, I know I've seen it. The paramedic that it seems they can't find the ALS complaint in any call. You know what I mean? It's like, not everything's either BLS or refusal. Um, but like
Well,
that's
that's a new one. I've not heard that one before. Usually what I've
uh,
always heard is you can always fit somebody in a protocol.
I agree. That's how I look at it. I can always figure it out. But part of what I do is I end up working with a lot of different services, a lot of different medics from different backgrounds, different
Mhm.
EMTs, different A's. And you definitely have some that's like you seem like these patients are a bother to you. You may consider any other profession. But so yeah, obviously you're pretty involved here with the education. Uh, on the classroom side, do you do anything with the precepting, the field clinical stuff with
Yeah,
the
so
students?
our advanced classes, I'm also the clinical coordinator. So
Okay.
I do get to work with the preceptors a good bit in that regard. And sometimes that can be a little challenging. I think more for the preceptors than it is for me. I do, because we definitely, our system of way of doing things is definitely much different than any of the other ed institutes on this side of the state, let alone the Commonwealth. I think
Yeah.
we do a lot of things that are very close to what other national ed institutes do, but not common around here.
Okay.
So again, what does that do? That challenges a lot of the preceptors that have been doing it for a long time, and when they get challenged, their first thought is, hey, you're doing something that's not right because nobody else is doing this, and I
Yeah.
can't blame them. I really, honestly, can't blame them for that.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I do get to work closely with them. It's more working with them, so I try to again um, elicit their help, get them
Yeah.
involved, get to hear what they want to say, let them know that they have a voice,
Yeah.
and then go from there and try to find a little common ground. And a lot of times that works.
Okay. And what do you do to vet these preceptors? I know that's always been kind of a
Yeah.
scary thought for me. You spend all this time teaching these folks, how we do things, why we do things, and then you unleash them into the field into somewhat of an unknown. We have a list of names at a service, at least at the level I'm at. I'm not
Hmm.
a program director. I don't, anything like that, but it's just, and then, hopefully they don't instill terrible habits or anything like that. So, what, what are you doing to kind of vet these preceptors, make sure that, you know, the education continues and doesn't get stunted now that they're out in the field with them?
Yeah. So I think it starts with understanding what and I'll just use the paramedic terms for it. Right. We have a national organization, KHEAP, that all paramedic classes need to be accredited through. And then COA is the organization that basically interprets KHEAPs, and I call them the watchdog of KHEAP.
Okay.
I would not say that to any one of them though, because they'd be upset if I said that. No, they do not consider themselves that, but that's what I call them. They're kind of the watchdog. They kind of let us know the ins and outs of what KHEAPs wants. But one of the things that is in there is that to be a preceptor, especially for a student, and right now it is solely for a student that is in their capstone time frame, that they had to have completed preceptor training and verified as
Mhm.
completing that.
So I know at least the counties that I work in currently, um, there was a countywide preceptor training that you could do, which kind of, I want to say around 2015 disappeared, maybe 16. And then the command systems, the health systems were doing a preceptor training. And I'd say in the last couple of years, those even seem to have disappeared.
Yeah.
So, obviously at some point we're going to run out of quote certified preceptors because nobody's doing the class. Um, so how do we, or I guess how do we, or you battle that? Because, obviously you want to get these preceptors trained, and it's a lot easier to have more preceptors than you need, right?
Yeah, absolutely, without a doubt. So you're correct. I mean, I've seen a lot of wide range of classes. We'll say, I'll put that in quotation marks. Preceptor training. I've heard that AHN does one. I've heard UPMC does one. Um, from
Yeah.
that point on, if they don't follow and that's usually predicated on their medical director, of course, being
Yeah.
associated with either one of those two.
Yeah.
But if it's not an organization that has a medical director that is not associated with either one of those two, then they kind of just, I don't know, make something up on their own. And then, of course, in our case, on the Ed Institute side, we've, the education of EMS has gone digital in a
Mhm.
lot of ways. And especially when it comes to the documentation of the clinical time and their skills and pathologies and things like that, those are all now digital. There's very rarely any handheld paper in EMS education.
Yeah.
So the one we've been using since I got here is Platinum Planner. They do have their own preceptor training that's on there. Um, when you even talk with that organization, they say that they just created this to support ed institutes that use their product. Right?
Yeah.
It was never meant, even in their mind, to say, "Hey, this is to be your preceptor training, and we want you to use it." So when you look at it, it is very lengthy.
Yeah.
Um, It does cover a good bit of, I think, what's important for preceptor, but it also adds a couple other things that I kind of scratch my head on. And then there's a questionnaire at the end, or basically an evaluation that the person takes on what they learned. It's 30 questions.
Mhm.
I mean, when I first started handing this out, or telling preceptors that they needed to complete this, as soon as they got to the questions, I mean, I got several people that told me 30 questions, really, it's got to be that long.
Yeah.
I got you. Yeah.
Yeah. As somebody who received that at one point, and some of those questions, and I don't know if this is like the first iteration of it and it's since been changed, but some of them were like, this is written really weird. Like, what do you
Right.
like? There's like a question about like if a student shows up drunk, do you send them home immediately? Do you make them sleep it off? I'm like, well, I'm not letting them drive. That's for sure. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
But I don't,
Right.
you know, it depends. I mean, if they're so drunk that I'm worried about them passing out and compromising their airway, I'm going to take them to the hospital.
What do you
Yeah,
think the
there's just
disconnect is there? Like, because there's a very similar complaint about, like NREMT style questions that like people will be like, "Oh, this doesn't, the way that it's asked, it doesn't
Yeah.
make sense." And when you have a board of people whose job it is to review questions and decide what is and what isn't a good question, it's kind of odd to me that like there's that disconnect between students reading the questions and then going, well, this doesn't even make any sense what they're asking, whenever there's a whole board of people who go, yeah, well, we spend all the time designing these questions and deciding what are and aren't good questions.
right. And that question that you're talking about there, Fiora and Aaron, I mean, that one's one that many preceptors have missed the answer on that one.
Yeah.
And most of them send them home. That is
Yeah.
not the answer.
Nah.
Believe
If
it or
I
not.
remember correctly, there was one about like contacting the institution and,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but Aaron, to answer your question personally, I think it's because we're so wired to evaluate the whole situation, you know, with all of our senses and not just reading black and white ink on the page, that it's like, but there's so much missing from this scene. You know what I
Right.
mean? That UTI scene where you can smell it, or the GI bleed that you can smell, or, seeing the paraphernalia on the, that end table to kind of indicate, hey, this may not be necessarily a diabetic issue. This may be drug related, or vice versa. You see the glucometer sitting on the table. It might be a diabetic issue. You get like those reminders. Like, obviously, if we have an unconscious person, we should always be checking all of those possibilities.
Sure.
But like, we're so used to having the ability to use all of our senses to kind of direct us more quickly, because, when it is important, oftentimes time is a factor, in my opinion. But these questions are obviously subjective because, if I write the question, I'm envisioning what this student looks like coming through the door, what is drunk to you versus, so personally, I think that's kind of an issue, is that people that are hardwired to do this are just, we want to use all of the information available, and there's never enough information.
I guess I'm just too observant.
Yeah, that's it.
That's
Yeah.
it. So with all these, I know specifically, I work for AHN, and part of our onboarding process is the preceptor, like their specific preceptor training is part of our onboarding,
Right.
because it's a requirement of my position to be a preceptor. But I've also worked for services that have the same medical director I have, and through AHN, and um, it's not part of their onboarding. The class is available to them, um, but I don't know the process of setting it up and things like that. So, and then I know um, other health systems that I've had command through. It's been, yeah, we have this class. Okay, well, when is it? How do I sign up for it? Because you keep sending students here, and I need to start taking them because we have students sitting at the station not running calls, and that's not good.
Right. No.
Oh yeah, we'll get back to you. We'll get back to you. So it doesn't seem that there is actually a class. So, I mean, what is the, I guess, the solution? Is it on the go back to the county models? Is it, let's get the health systems to kind of kick it up a notch in some cases, or, does it fall back on the Ed Institute ultimately
Uh,
to fix that?
well, if we go and look at K-Heap's statements on this, their interpretation is that it's up to the Ed Institute
Okay.
to determine what that preceptor training is.
Okay.
It's ironic because COA did do a study that was sent out. Actually, it was a questionnaire that they sent out via email. I think it went out to all the program directors. This is between April and May of this year.
Hmm.
And our program director got this as well. One of the questions on there, a couple of the questions, was dealing with preceptor training, consistency of it, readily availability of it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
What they got back from the program directors was a wide variety of answers to that,
Yeah.
to those questions, including our own, right?
Yeah.
And so they interpreted, and this is across the country, mind you. So, Pennsylvania is not alone in this,
Yeah.
that there is no consistency on preceptor.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, even if it was county based, I teach at IUP, and we have students from Allegheny, Westmoreland, Butler,
Mhm.
Venango, Indiana, obviously. We have a student right now from Philadelphia County.
Mhm.
I mean, there's just no way to, I think, expect. I mean, I work consistently in Allegheny and Butler County, and they don't even do everything the same, and they're neighbors. So how are you going to get everybody right? So, but then obviously, there needs to be some standardization, I think, as to what's expected. So,
Yeah.
uh,
So, I mean, that right now is what I'm actually looking to do.
okay,
We are not going to be using Platinum Planner anymore.
very
As
cool.
far as preceptor training goes, when our next cohorts start, which will be at the beginning of the year, preceptors hopefully would have already started our version of preceptor training. And what I'm hoping to do is I've incorporated as many ambulance services and preceptors to have a voice in it. I want them to say, what they think that training should be,
Yeah,
and then take the comments from those to create this, right? Um, and then I've asked a few Ed institutes, including IUP. I've asked
yeah,
them to partake in this with me, and why? Because I would want them to adopt that too,
sure,
right? Let's make it consistent across the board, but they also have a say in it. So they would be the finalizing say of it, right?
yeah,
We would get it to a certain point, and then they would say, "Yeah, this looks good," or "No, we need to change this," or tweak that.
yeah,
Again, the goal is that there's consistency. So it doesn't matter if you're working for the city of Pittsburgh, or you're working for Citizens Ambulance Service, or you're working for the city of Philadelphia. That's how far I
sure,
want to push it.
yeah,
When you go to do preceptor training, you're going to go through the same thing as each one across the side. The only difference is that the Ed Institute that will provide that training to you, the caveat to it would be their intricacies that they would add as part of their own classes, right?
mhm.
The requirements that they have for the preceptors.
Okay. So then my question is, so my full-time employment, obviously, we get students from Penn State, from IUP, CCAC, Butler, the center. I get students from everywhere. Um, so how do you kind of, if Penn State's and IUPs and CCAC and Pitt and everybody's all different, right? How do I need to take that class for Penn State? Do I need to take it then for IUP or Pitt, the CCAC? You know what I'm saying? How do you work that
Well,
out?
well, right now, I mean that's how you just portrayed it is exactly how it's happening, right?
Okay.
So I go to I'm create a new affiliation agreement with an ambulance service, let's say, right? And I go to them and I say, hey, please give me a list of your preceptors.
Hmm.
And then I tell them, and in the manual that we have for the ambulance service to sign, there's two parts that look very similar to one another. They either sign one or fill out one and sign for the other. One is that they don't have preceptor training for their preceptors and they've not completed it, in which case we'll supply that to them. The other one is they've completed preceptor training. They have record of it. If that's the case, all they need to do is supply me with that record.
Okay.
Okay. So there's a lot of ed institutes that are doing it the exact same way.
Yeah.
And so it's not, they do not have to, there's nothing in writing by our accrediting agency that says that it has to be our training. They just say that they have to have been acknowledged to complete preceptor training, right? So it can be from someplace else. The problem is what you've mentioned a little bit, right? A lot of inconsistency, no real proof. That was the one that surprised me the most, right? There's no certificate of completion that's provided to them that they actually completed it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't believe I have. I might somewhere in my, on our HR portal of, because every training, every thing has a certification.
Well, and if I were a dishonest service manager, I could just like create certificates for all my preceptors and say, "Oh yeah, they did it."
Are you a dishonest service manager, Aaron?
I'm not. I am honest and not a service director.
Excellent.
You could, but again, I mean, I think, that would never happen, because if they're going to fake it, they would just say, yeah, they took it on this date, because it's consistent across the board. There's no place that is handing out certificates. We're still not handing out certificates because Platinum Planner doesn't create a certificate within their thing. I thought that was also odd. Like they themselves even didn't do that. Right.
Yeah.
So it's more suspicious to have a certificate than it is to not.
I at this point in time, yeah, maybe, right? It kind of looks that way. I hate to say it, but that's that would be the oddball out, right? To have the certificate.
Yeah.
So a couple of things that I want to create is the ability for, and here's another one too. No Con Ed. We have somebody go through training when it deals with just about anything else. There's Con Ed associated with it.
Yeah.
Why are these preceptors not getting some Con Ed for this training, which would require a true syllabus and a schedule, right? On top of a certificate of completion.
I mean, I 2 weeks ago, something like that, I did a presentation at Cranberry's Training Blitz, and like that was they got Con Ed for that. Why can't you get Con Ed for preceptor training?
There is none.
Put it under other. It doesn't have to necessarily be, obviously it wouldn't be EMSVO.
Yeah, no, I gotcha. Yeah, no, you're right. So they probably could, but again, you would have to create something. So even if you would use a certificate for endorsement, right? They would not probably accept the certificate unless they had something to go by. So there would have to be some kind of a syllabus and a schedule to show for it.
Yeah.
So again, there's no way to put this in the PA registry. The PA train doesn't even have anything like this.
Yeah.
So recently I did have a conversation with Tim Wrights with the idea to let him know that I was working on this and where I was at the moment, which is basically a lengthened outline is what it is. It's 6 modules of training. But right now I've just got an outline look to it, right? No meats and potatoes involved in it. So that is the next step, is the meats and potatoes. I have one group of preceptors that I'm going to be meeting with here in the next month. And once I get their feedback, I think I'm going to just try to create some meats and potatoes of it, and then reach out again to the Ed Institutes and share it with them to see, what they think. And also with Tim, I told him I would share it with him.
Yeah.
The goal that he had with it is he feels that this can be something that would be put on the PA train. If that's the case, then in reality, the person can literally just go to the PA train, have the training done, and supply the certificate to the Ed Institute.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at that point, if it's through PA train, it automatically adds it to your Con Ed profile in the registry site. So it's, the state registry, for clarification. But I mean, I've taken some wild courses on PA train that I'm like, this should not be for Con Ed. I can't imagine something like this getting turned down, because I mean, at the end of the day, it's still something that is absolutely involved with EMS and obviously the education thereof. But
Very much so. Very much so. There's a lot of there, even though, the Commonwealth has been on the National Registry system, right?
Hmm.
And KHEAP has been a big involvement in paramedic classes since the mid 2000s, I think. So 20 some years we've been having paramedic classes going through and producing paramedics that are nationally registered, at least 20 years here in the Commonwealth. And we are still having a lot of preceptors out there that clearly don't know any of this.
Yeah.
They have no idea that there's a KHEAP out there. They kind of get an inkling of it. They know what COA. They hear that more than they hear KHEAP, first of all, and then second of all, they have no idea what that really means, for the most part. And I'm talking preceptors that have national registration
Yeah.
certifications.
Well, I mean, I guess, does it, it's not something that they typically worry about. I mean, most of your preceptors, they finished class, they passed their registry, they went to work. And then one day somebody was like, hey, you have to do this so you can take students because we have to take students. You know what I mean? I would say most preceptors, not all, there are some preceptors that are absolutely passionate about it and are great.
Sure.
But I'd say most preceptors, it's more their, you know, hey, you have a student today. You know what I mean? It's not like, hey, how can I get students? It's just kind of thrust upon them.
That is correct. Yeah, they kind of thrust it upon him. And even when I think back to my own self, I mean, again, I'll toss myself under the bus. I mean, when I first became a preceptor, this was probably in the mid 2000s, right around the same time that, we were moving to the National Registry system
Yeah.
as a Commonwealth. No one sat there and told me what the heck that meant.
Yeah.
Other than I was to, watch over the students doing skills and teach them the protocols, right? And that kind of thing. No one sat there and said, hey, what happens if, a student breaks down in the middle of a call? What do you do then? Right.
Yeah.
Or they just come in
Put
drunk,
them in the front seat.
right? Probably that's probably what we would do because, back then we did that a lot. Did that a lot. So what does it turn into? It really turns into, what that person figures that, they should be doing for that student, right?
Yeah.
And they may ask a few people and get a little bit of, clarification on it, but there's nothing that, says, hey, this is what you do in this situation.
Yeah.
And here's another one too. I mean, paramedic, this is definitely the case. When we go through a class and teach that class, there is no protocols associated with that class.
Correct. Yeah.
None. Right.
Yeah.
So when they go into and start their field time with a preceptor, I mean, the preceptor really wants to teach them those protocols. And, that was one of the first times I started meeting with some preceptors when I asked them, hey, where do the protocols come into play? What do you guys think about that? Right off the bat, they said that was their obligation to teach that to them. And I said, no, that is not your obligation. If they're to hire, right, then yes. If you're an FTO, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. But if you're a preceptor for a student that's in, a paramedic class in particular, it doesn't matter what the institute, they're protocol lists. The only time those protocols come into place is obviously we're treating a patient, so we have to stay within the parameters of the house that we're in, right?
Yeah.
And that's it.
Well, I mean, that's always something that I've noticed. Obviously, now I work alone, so I don't have any other preceptors around me at the time. But I noticed folks would be really focusing on showing, like at the beginning of the shift, showing them where we keep this or that. I'm like, they don't care. We're not hiring them. They don't need to know how to fill out an overtime slip. They don't need to know how to submit the schedule. I mean, show them where the locker room is so they can go to the bathroom while they're here. But like, that, I, I don't know.
Sure.
The show where the important stuff is, just so it's like, hey, I need the monitor. I need the innovation kit. You can hand it
Right.
over, but I don't need to know where we keep all the 4x4s and 2x2s and the spare set of this or that. It seemed like a waste of their time, to be honest.
I like to give students a quiz at the beginning, and it's 80 questions long, and it's recall, and it's fill in the blank. Like there's no word bank, no multiple choice, and you have to say the exact precise location to the nearest tenth of an inch from the front to the rear compartment of where things are located.
Yeah, and you make my head hurt sometimes. You really do. You really do. How fast you can just spit that out is amazing. It's amazing. Um,
Glad I didn't have to precept with
that's
him.
right.
That's for
Yeah,
sure.
no kidding. That was a comprehensive test, 80 questions.
Yeah.
Whew.
Like,
Fill in
yeah.
the blank, no
Oh.
less.
Now, usually my
Anyways,
questions are, do you know what a cardiac monitor is?
if no, go
Yeah.
back to class.
Yes.
In all seriousness, though, my first question to any student is, do you have your papers that show what you can do? You know,
Oh,
because
see now you're starting to make me feel really good, warm and fuzzy inside, Cole,
yeah,
because we don't there's not a lot of preceptors that ask that. There's not a lot of clinical preceptors that ask that.
oh my goodness, it's frustrating 'cause it's like, what can you do? And then every every one of I don't know, or whatever. It's not whatever. It's you've either been cleared to do it or not. And if you haven't been cleared to do it and you mess up and it's negatively impacts the patient, we're both on the line for this. Like, because I'm letting you do stuff that you're not cleared to do, So, but it's I just like I just want to know what you're allowed to do. I'm not gonna, I'm gonna let you do everything you can do. I'm gonna let you watch and whatever the stuff that you can't. But on the call is not the time to find out what you can
Yeah,
do
no, yeah,
because
no kidding.
yeah,
Yeah.
again,
And
time is of the
that's
essence.
another obligation, right? The Ed Institute is to make sure that the student has a paper that shows what they've completed. They've been signed off on. There's if not a signature by the instructor, at least their initials showing that they've completed it and a date that it was completed. Then now it's on the onus of the student to make sure that they take that form with them. And I tell the students that this is on you, right? Because at any point in time, if they get, if you're working, with Fior, that's going to be being your field preceptor, he's going to ask you for that form. And if you don't have it, well, then I guess you're not going to be doing any skills that day,
Yeah.
right? And at one point, I was wanted to take a hard stance with that, and then I kind of backed off a little bit because I initially was telling the preceptors, if they don't have it, send them home.
Yeah.
And then I thought to myself, no, because people can be forgetful. It can happen, and I don't want to punish a student, right? That's not the goal of it. The goal is to keep that where they remember to bring it in the future. And so the only way you can do that is if they don't have it, then there's no skills you can do for that day.
Yeah. So the way I've always kind of accomplished it is I know nobody's cleared to go into the field until they can do an IV. So if you don't have your paperwork, I'll let you start an IV, but that is it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
no, that I know.
it's like I feel like it sucks for you because
You have failed your preceptor training.
I how have I failed?
You haven't failed. There are ed institutes that will send their students into the field once they get through assessments.
Really?
Yes.
All right. Well, I'm going to need to cut them back to just assessments then. Good Lord.
Now, I personally, I think, again, you're looking at the paramedic level where they've already, may have gone, definitely gone through EMT training, and maybe this is a student that's an A. So not only did they go through EMT training, they went through A training on top of it, right? So they've been double dosed with assessments, right? By me clearing them just to go in there for assessments, I think no. It's best that if we're going to send them in there, then yes, let's let them do something while they're there.
Yeah, that's such a tease.
Assessing.
Because that would be when you would get your best call all year.
100%.
Right. Yeah.
There'd be somebody who would need NIO,
had
intubated,
this-
needle decompression, like.
Right. So our students, by the time they begin that, they've gone through at least IVs and IM, IO, IV, sub-Q injections, intubations if they're paramedic, and supraglottic if they're A's. So
yeah, no, I mean it makes sense. I've always kind of been more conservative with it. Like I know that they've taught you IVs, or at least I thought I knew. And I agree. Ours aren't released until after the airway module, or at least the intubation skills are completed.
Yep.
But I do know an institute that I've had students from where the student has told me this. I'm like, I need that in writing because I don't believe you. But they say that even if they're not checked off, they're allowed to do it because they don't want them to miss out on the skill. I'm like, cannot possibly be a thing. So you're not doing it.
No. So, I mean, there is a thing that's called formative, right? We need to make sure that the student has gone through enough rounds of doing this that they're meeting the formative level. This means they're getting to the point where they're asking very little questions. They don't have to look at a sheet on the process, right, or actually process it through their brain. It's starting to become a little second nature. So by the time they go on the truck, it, like IVs in particular, really should be almost second nature to them.
Mhm.
Which means now you're not really hitting the formative side of it; you're hitting the summative side of it, which is where we want them to be when they're in.
Yeah. No, I mean,
I've always thought it was interesting that cardiology is so far into paramedic training, because I would say that it arguably takes the most amount of time and the most amount of monitoring for people to get skilled with.
Which skill is that again, Aaron? I'm sorry.
Interpreting EKGs.
Yeah, I mean that module in our paramedic class does take up a large portion of the class, right?
yeah.
The one though that I find the most challenging for students, and especially for me as a clinical coordinating portion of it, is getting them the ability to see live patients, to put in supraglottic airways and intubate. It's not like it used to be, where when I was precepting, I could work while I was precepting one. And so, if you go in a cardiac arrest, after a while, that would start to happen. But even in the clinical side, going to a clinical site, it was much easier to get into the OR during those days to actually do intubations
Yeah.
than it is now. The ORs, for the most part, there's not many of them that will allow students to come in there from EMS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I figured that out recently. Has to do with anesthesia. It's typically not the hospital's anesthesia. It's just a contracted group that is
Right.
not the hospital.
Right.
There's very few hospitals left that have in-house anesthesia that is a traditional employee of the health system. So, which I found interesting,
Yeah.
frustrating, but interesting.
No, I agree with you 100%. That is definitely frustrating and interesting. Both.
Yeah, yeah.
Both.
But
Um,
yeah,
so that's my challenging one there, right? And so we really try to tell our students that they need to do time, and here's where they need to go. And then there's an onboarding process that I'm starting to become grayer by the day over
mhm.
personally.
I
And that's me. Students want to bang their heads off the wall. That's what they want to do,
yeah.
because it's frustrating to them, very much so.
I had a student the other day ask me about our student onboarding process. I'm like, I have no idea. I just see on my schedule that I have a student that day.
Right.
Um, they show up.
Well, the onboarding process for field is practically non-existent. Like, as soon as we clear them to do field time, I could literally say, call up any ambulance service to say,
Yeah.
hey, I got a student who's going, and I'll say, okay, yeah, bring them.
No, I meant
And
for my full time job, like to
oh,
get ride time there. Apparently, is a process which I didn't know.
I bet you it's not as much as what you thought it was. Clinical time, in hospital time, those are difficult. Those onboarding processes
Yeah.
is paperwork out the wazoo.
Well, that's what we
And
fall under. Same.
okay.
So you get cleared to do the hospitals, and the response trucks is the same
Oh, okay.
process. Yeah. So
Yep. Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
it's like I had no idea because when I precepted, it was the same thing. You just, hey, can I come in on Tuesday?
Right.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Like shift changes at 4.
There was a scheduler for one of the ERs that our students was going to, that literally told me the first time I had talked to her that, hey, there's a sign-in sheet in the medic room. Have the students come in there and sign their name on the dates and times that they want to do it. And my first thought was, oh my God, is this 1995? What the heck just happened?
That's how I did all my. That's how I did all of my clinical time.
And then I said to her, I said, well, this is going to be a problem, because the particular student at the time that I was trying to get onboarded to it had over an hour's drive just to get to that facility. And so I told her that. I said, he's not going to come in on a hunch sign up and drive that long. He's not going to do that.
Sure.
Is there another way that we can get him to, schedule these without having to fill out this sign-in sheet?
Yeah.
And so she worked with him. But I mean, it's probably because, she clearly understood that, he's not going to make that drive. So there had to be something else worked out.
Yeah.
But I found that pretty amazing, that was something, again, back when I was precepting, that would be very common, a sign-in sheet sitting in the, ambulance room or medical.
Yeah.
What I think is
Right.
crazy is that I could walk into just about any ER and I could wear a black pair of just like work pants and a black polo. And I could tell them I'm a student here. I'm here to participate. And the things that they would let me do with no further verification. Crazy.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also at the same time, no matter how much verification you provide, you will never once get most of these ER docs unless they know you to let you do a tube or anything like that.
Yeah. Fair. But you could do as many IVs and blood draws as you want.
Like literally,
That's fun.
I can create sepsis out the wazoo, but they won't.
Aaron, I bet you could turn up in basketball shorts and a t-shirt and be like, "Hey, I'm a medic student. You have any IVs that need started?" They'll be like, "Yeah, go to triage and start IVs."
Unfortunately, you're probably right. Again, because people just we don't ask enough questions. We really,
Yeah.
really don't.
Well, I think that part of it is the inconsistencies across each
Mhm.
different ed institute has their own forms, their own process, their own way of doing things. And then within even the same ed institute, you've got multiple classes at different positions within the class. And even within the same class, different students aren't checked off to do everything yet because they weren't quite there. So it's like trying to keep all that straight would be a nightmare. So you really have to rely on the student to give the correct information to the site. So
Yeah, correct. But I think, one of the things that I've been trying to work on is to try to make that process a little bit more smoother too.
yeah,
Not just for the student, but for the places the student is going to, clinical wise in particular.
makes sense.
Um, and again, knowledge is power. That's something that's been said many, many times by a lot of people, and I agree with it 100%. And whether it's a preceptor or it's a student, as soon as you empower them to have a voice and say something and be a part of it, all of a sudden there's a buy-in process that's happening.
Yeah,
And the interesting thing, especially with the preceptor training I've been working on, talking with some preceptors, the interesting thing is as soon as they started talking with me about it, really some great ideas were coming out, things that I didn't even think of.
yeah,
Like the first example that I said, what happens if a student breaks down in the middle of a call, has an actual emotional event? What do you do?
yeah.
That's one of the modules that is not part of any training that I know of. And there was several preceptors that mentioned that to me. And it's because they were thrusted with situations like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
And obviously, you can't necessarily you can't remove the student entirely from the situation. You still have a duty to perform that call. Uh,
right.
it may not be another unit available to come get that student, and
Mhm.
you may not have the time if it's a time critical call that sorry, we got to get him to the hospital. So honestly, I just kind of my thought is throw him in the front seat of the truck and try to remove him as much as you can. But and it's awful. It's probably not great from a mental health standpoint. But
Right.
what other options do we have?
Well, in essence, I mean, that's what that module is. And then it's expanded more. So when I started talking to the preceptors more and started posing some of my questions, going back to them, like, is it just, on a call, or, what happens if they come in and it seems like they're distraught and not, really involved? And it's because of, life that's getting them, right. There's home concerns or health concerns that they may be having a loved one or even themselves or something, right? Who knows? Does that also fall in the category? And he said, well, yeah, it does. And so then I said to him, I said, my next question was, well, the University, Penn State has actual resources on those. We provide them to our students as part of our handbook. If you're having these concerns, whether it's to Title IX all the way to, you need assistance with education, right? Because you're diagnosed with a learning disability, to you're having psychological issues that are happening, whether it's life it's doing it or a call that occurred. Penn State has these resources. I said, would you think that it would be beneficial to you guys if you were taught where these resources were too, so you could share these with these students? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it sounds almost no brainer. Like I really should have thought of this myself,
Well, so
but it was
I
them that thought of it.
yeah, I see the value, and I also see the, like you'd have to keep a library almost of this is where this institute has that. Here's how you get a hold of it for, this one. Here's how you get for this one. Here's how you for this
Hmm.
one.
Hmm.
Um, which I mean, we're talking probably a couple binders or a binder. So we should be able in all of our ambulance stations find a place for a binder of information. But I really think that the Ed Institute is, I think, taking responsibility for these students, sending them to these um, services to Precept. And I do think that the Ed Institute needs to make sure that these services are set up for success. Now, obviously, there's factors you can't always control, and I think that the the agency taking the students as well needs to have some. We're going to do everything we can to make sure we can accommodate these students, but yeah, it's something as simple as having a schedule, so it's not we have more students than we have preceptors today kind of thing. Um, but because I've worked places where you have no idea that a student's showing up. They just somebody knocks on the door. Might be one, might be four of them. And
Wow.
just rotate them through. So
Well, the
I
other
don't
thing
have that
about
problem now. But
the other thing about preceptors too is they're also doing the OGT for every new hire. So it's like there's definitely some responsibility on the employer to make sure.
Yeah.
So it's kind of crazy to me that there isn't any preceptor training for both the
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
like we said earlier, precepting a student and onboarding a new employer, two very different processes.
absolutely.
But yeah, well,
It is.
usually it's your
It
more
is.
responsible employees if done correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ones that you want to mentor new hires, right? Those new medics that are going to be, getting their command, they have to work from, FTOs, if you want to call them that. Um, but you're correct, VR. I mean, when you're looking at precepting students, this is a little bit different, right? It's not exactly the same.
Yeah.
That new hire, you're going to teach them the ins and outs of that ambulance service, and
Yeah.
there may be some SOP work done with them on top of. You're going to make sure that they're solid on their protocols, right? For
Yeah.
sure, and they can mitigate themselves through calls. For
Yeah.
the student, it really is to make sure that the student is able to certainly do the skills appropriately that they're supposed to. But up and on top of that, it's moving them, prepare them for their capstone side, which is, how are they running the call overall? So really that process needs to start before they enter capstone. They need to
Yeah.
actually start that probably a good, probably when they're in the
Yeah.
cardiac side of the class.
Yeah. Well, I know I've seen preceptors that it doesn't matter if it's your first shift precepting or you're in your capstone or your internship or whatever your institution wants to call it. Um, and they're like, I'm just here to make sure you don't kill anybody. Well, I don't know. This is the second time they've attempted an IV on a live human being. Might want to be a little more involved than that, but
Right.
yeah,
Right.
just a thought. Now, does
So,
your
I mean, I think that's, not to cut you off there,
no,
I
you're good. You're good.
apologize for that. But, I mean, I think that's the difficult side of it, right? I mean, the most challenging, I think, or the most pushback I get from preceptors is they're already starting to feel that pressure, right? They work for a service that is running significant amount of calls. They feel like they're, have to get these trip sheets out, and they're feeling that pressure. And then on top of it, they've got this student. Now this Ed Institute needs them to evaluate that student because we have to get those records. Why? Because the Commonwealth and our accrediting agency says we have to obtain these. Now they don't say how we have to do it. They just say we need to obtain them, right?
Yeah.
So again, there's a vast difference between Ed Institutes on how they obtain these. I think we can narrow that down a little bit too, and at least have a little bit of consistency with that. But I get pushback from them because they feel the pressure with it, right? And a lot of times, what they're doing, and I found this out, is they're not really pushing back and saying, "Hey, we're tired of this. We don't want to do it." What they're really saying is, "Can you cut me a little bit of slack? Can you help me out here a little bit?"
Yeah.
And most of the ones where I say, hey, what can I do to help you? I'm here to help you too, not just a student, but you as well. Again, without a doubt, most of the time I find out that they start opening up and saying, well, this form that you have me filling out, it is a little confusing. Can you explain it to me a little bit better?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And would it be easier for you just to send the form to me as opposed to uploading it in the platform? Oh, no, I can email it to you. Well, that's perfect. Do that.
Yeah.
That'll work. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden now they're being 100% compliant when before, there was a lot of confusion most likely, and they were kind of pushing back against that.
Well, I
So we
know.
really do have to help each other out in this.
Yeah. Well, I know a place I worked at whenever you guys first started sending out that uh, preceptor education module on Platinum Planner.
Yeah. Yeah.
We were a union shop, and the amount of people that I heard saying that they're not doing it because it's a change in working conditions was insane to me. I'm like, okay, then don't do it. Takes 30 seconds. Not literally, but it was 30 minutes maybe. I don't remember how long it was. It wasn't long, but people were losing their minds over it. And I'm like, well, then don't do it. I don't know what to tell you. I don't care. Like, but I agree. I agree 100%. Um, but let me ask you another question here, Greg.
Yeah.
The forms, like the evaluation forms, do you find
Mhm.
that you get a lot of preceptors that actually fill those out and leave comments like, "Hey, work on this," or "Good job on that"? 'Cause I
Well,
notice they're blank half the time. They circled everything was all fives. I'm like, well, that's not accurate at all. I've seen them in class. There's no way that's accurate.
no, and I agree. And I mean, actually, I mean, when you look at our creating agency, when they talk about it, they say that, all perfects all the time. Really honestly doesn't make any sense, and they consider that as us hitting the lottery.
Yeah.
That's how unusual that is. And I even said to a student one time, I had posed a question, do you believe that I've been perfect my entire life? And they said no. And I said, you would be right.
Yeah.
And even when I felt that I was, doing the right things when I was out there running, and I felt that I was pretty, educated in what I was doing, there was probably every day, at least some portion of that day where, something didn't go right and I didn't handle it probably the best I could have handled it. Right. So
Yeah.
again, an error is made or whatever.
Yeah.
We're not going to be perfect. Not every day, not every call. That just honestly makes no sense. It really doesn't.
Yeah.
But, when you look at the preceptors, they just really want to get the students through. That's what they want. So I sympathize with them in that regard. It's hard to sit there and critically evaluate somebody that relies on you to get them through the class. And if you feel like if you're scoring them a certain way, that you're being a little bit too harsh with them, that it could affect their ability to get through the class. So one of the
Yeah.
first things I tell the preceptors is, hey, first of all, this number is okay for you to put on these students.
Yeah.
Totally fine. As a matter of fact, they should be at this number. If they meet this criteria, then put that down. If they exceed it, then do the next number up. Don't automatically just give them the highest score. It's okay to give them this. They're still passing. They're still where they're supposed to be.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So the rubric is a little bit more than just a writing that's on a piece of paper or on a form. It really needs to be the clinical coordinator that explains to the preceptors what that rubric means and what those numbers mean in depth. So I think that needs to be part of the training as well.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Hmm. Yeah.
Let Let me ask you this. What is your thought on students precepting with their instructors? 'Cause
Well, you
I have a very specific thought on it, but I want to hear yours.
I will just tell you that if you look at the nursing side of it, that is how they do it.
Yeah.
I mean, they have instructors that are at that clinical site with the students now. That doesn't mean they're technically being precepted by their instructor, but their instructor is there, right there.
Yeah.
And I think that that's more on the lines of just to making sure that if there's any concerns that they can handle it immediately, that kind of thing, or provide support to the student if they need it, right?
Yeah.
Um, for me, I think that takes a very special person that has to understand. Same thing with the student, that the instructor now is at a different role. They're not the instructor anymore.
Yeah.
Now, with that being said, there was something that was proposed at one of the conferences that I went to, and I heard somebody mention this, where they weren't calling the preceptors; they were calling them field instructors, and I liked
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
When that person had spoke on it, they had said that, sometimes the language is everything. And I think we've used the word preceptorship in a way that is very, not demeaning, but is very vague and not really accurate to what they're doing. They're instructing at the time. So when I talk to instructors, to preceptors, I tell them, you are our field instructors that are out there.
Yeah.
That's really what you're doing. Okay. You're giving them the little tricks of the trade of when it comes to certain things
Yeah.
that we will talk about in class, but now they're going to have a live person in front of them
Yeah.
with you, so you can help in that regard with that too.
Yeah. See,
So from my perspective, I don't think it's a bad thing. I just think that they need to definitely make sure that they're doing the field instructor side of it, not
yeah.
the in-class instructor side of it.
See, I've always told any of the students that want to precept with me, I'm happy to have you for a few shifts, but um, I should not be your primary preceptor. You already get to hear the way I do things when I'm telling you here in class. So go out and learn how it's done by somebody else. They may have a trick that is going to work great for you that doesn't work for me, and vice versa. So I think I don't think it's a bad thing, but I don't think that your classroom instructors and your field instructors, to use your phrase, should be the same uh, all the time. I think that you need to get varied input
Oh,
somewhere.
without a doubt.
You know,
Yeah, without a doubt. And let's face it here, the time that the students are getting at the field sites is
Mhm.
more than just the time for them. This is an opportunity for the field site when they take on that student to really, showcase themselves a little bit,
Yeah,
right? Because this could be a potential employee.
yeah,
Just because they may be working at another service at a time doesn't mean that once they become, a paramedic or an A or whatever,
yeah,
that they may not consider, trying to apply to your place, right?
yeah,
So this is to me, I think, just as important to the field site as it is, and the preceptors that are there, that it is
yeah.
to the student.
Well, last week we had Chief Schmidt on, and from Shaler Hampton, and he was saying that a lot of his current employees are former students. They came there to do their field time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like you're able to pick out, what's going to work for your organization, and see how that student is going to function inside of your ecosystem as well. So, but yeah, no, it's absolutely, uh, uh, it's always a job interview, even if it's not,
Hmm.
uh, but, well, hey, I hate to cut this conversation short, but we'll definitely have to have you back on, continue this conversation. It's been very good, I think, from my perspective. I don't know about you, Aaron, but Greg, thank you for the consult. We've really enjoyed having you on. Uh,
Oh, thank you guys for having me as well. I don't do a lot of these, obviously, so I appreciate the time, and definitely I can talk you guys' ear off for sure. When it comes to EMS,
yeah,
I've broadened my perspective, I think, on the different sides of EMS. Where when I was younger, I would have been very strict and one-sided, right?
yeah,
So I love talking about it even more than I did when I was working steadily in it.
yeah.
So thank you for the time to do that. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And like I said, I'm sure we'll have to have you back on here, continue the conversation, and good luck with the preceptor training program,
Great.
getting it up onto some of the training sites or what have you. But think it's all good stuff.
We'll see what
Yeah.
happens. My goal is to be very open with it. I think that it's something that everybody, once they get involved, really can make it into something that we all like. And certainly having it on a platform like the PA Train gives the ability of an asynchronous work, so it provides the ability for someone to complete it pretty much on the fly.
Yeah.
But you still have room where for those folks that like an in-person class, we can still do that too, right?
Yeah.
So consistency, that's what we want to see happen.
Yeah.
So I'll definitely share with you guys what happens moving forward with it,
I'd
for sure.
appreciate it. I'd appreciate it. Well, thank you again. And for those of you listening along and watching along, if you have interest in joining us, please reach out. Thanks for the consult at gmail.com.